Have you ever wanted to read a letter that was meant for someone else? Have you ever wanted to travel the world but didn't have the time or the money? If so, you are in the right place. Welcome to In My Voice, the podcast where we read letters and share travel stories about places by our guests. I am your host, Bonaheri, and each week I'll guide you through these two different yet fascinating worlds. In the first segment, we'll read letters written to listeners like you about a variety of subjects, from heartwarming stories to heartbreaking experiences. These letters offer a unique perspective on the human experience. Some of them will make you laugh, while the others will bring a tear to your eye. But they all have one thing in common. They are written from the heart. In the second segment, we will embark on a journey to explore the world through travel stories. We'll visit exotic destinations, meet interesting people, and experience the joys and challenges of traveling. Whether you are a seasoned traveler or someone who's always dreamed of seeing the world, you will find something to inspire you in these stories. So, join me every week as we dive into these two fascinating worlds. In My Voice. I promise you won't be disappointed. Subscribe now and don't miss an episode. Welcome back to In My Voice. I'm your host, Bonaheri, and I'm always excited to have you on the show. Today we commemorate this month, which happens to be the month of men's mental health. I know you know the things we talk about. Men don't cry. Men can't vent. Men are supposed to be strong and all those things. This month is here to create awareness about the challenges that men go through when it comes to mental health. So today we are breaking down the walls and having a real conversation with a very special guest who is dedicated to the cause of mental health. The CEO and founder of Power Generations Uganda. He's also the brains behind Take a Moment, which is an activity that normally happens every, I think, after a few months, so that people can take a moment to just enjoy the games and reflect on their lives without having to think about the problems that they go through on a daily basis. Welcome to In My Voice, Innocent.
Thank you, Abbas. I am really very happy and excited to be on, this podcast. It's something that I love to talk about, and I can't wait for us to dive in, and share my experiences, but also a few ideas on how men can basically try and navigate issues to do with mental illness, mental issues. There are quite many, Personally, I've gone through a long experience that I will share with you today, I guess. You'll be the first people to know that story, but I have not shared it anywhere because of the stereotype. One, you talked about men don't cry, men don't, show or share their experiences or feelings. So today, maybe I'll get a chance to share that for someone else out there to learn from it. But I'm very happy.
Just know for sure you are in a safe space.
I do know.
You're in a safe space here. I'm going to get some tissue so that just in case emotions get on the other side of us, it's allowed we can both cry and share our experiences.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, who is Innocent?
So Innocent is full names Innocent Junior Robin Nkotanyi Mugira. Born to a Ugandan mom and a Rwandan dad, so I share blood from both, and I usually find it very hard to support a team in sports if the two are playing. I tend to avoid those games. Just recently, I think on Monday, I avoided the basketball in which Uganda and Rwanda were because I didn't know who to support. Yeah, I am so drawn to both countries, passionate and emotional to them. But besides that, Abbas, I am a lawyer by training, and I do not practice the law. Yes, I put it on a hold. And Currently, I am a journalist with Power FM, Journalist, because I've done the training, and my graduation is actually tomorrow, Friday.
Oh, wow.
Of the 14th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I'm a youth advocate by also training and passion. And I do that work with Pearl Generation Uganda as the founder and CEO, of course. And Pearl Generation is basically a youth mentorship hub center trying to set up safe spaces and platforms for young people to basically be able to explore their potentials, but also elevate their voices in spaces that they feel they are comfortable to talk about issues that are affecting them. So this goes beyond just youth mentorship, youth advocacy, to issues to do with mental health, because we live in a generation that is, easily and largely affected by mental health issues. So those are some of the things that we do. And besides that, Bwana Heri, I am a sports lover, and I do love sports. I am engraved in it, so explains why I do a sports show with Power FM 104.9.
Yeah, and you didn't mention you are an ardent Arsenal and AC Villa diehard.
Yeah, I am a diehard of AC Villa and Arsenal.
Men don't cry. What do you think of that very old adage that normally we go with in our community?
I think it's a stereotype. And it's a gender stereotype to, try get men suppress their emotions and feelings hidden down, deep within themselves. And I think this is a gender stereotype that basically started way back, our ancestors, in a way to, create men that were warriors, but also men that were fearless,
Yeah.
And we are past, that generation and time of our culture. These were men who used to go for hunting,
Yeah.
So you literally had to put on your fierce and fearless face to go hunting or maybe to go to battle. I'll tell you, my name Gotanyi is actually a name that was given to warriors in the traditional army in Rwanda, and I picked the name from my grandfather, who had served in the Rwandan army, traditional army, and was a warrior. So it had been a title given to him. And then they thought, why not give it to Innocent?
Innocent, yeah.
And I grew up in a position where I was always reminded that Kotanyi, and I don't cry. I do not fear anything, So it basically came off as a gender stereotype. And as I grew up, I started suppressing and shoving a lot of emotions within myself, feelings, and I couldn't easily express them. Up until now, I do not know how to express my feelings. I don't know how to ask for help, but it's because of that men don't cry. Yeah.
I think it's something that we have taken up so seriously as Africans and like Ugandans in particular. I remember even as a child, when you fell down, you were not supposed to cry because you're a man. Like, be like a man,
Yeah,
your
exactly,
parents would be like, be like a man, men don't cry and things like that, which has significantly affected this gender. How do we retrain people, retrain the man or the boy child to start thinking, you know what, it's allowed for me to show my emotions?
Abbas, it might be hard for people of my generation or our generation as millennials, as baby boomers who are generation before us, or even the Gen Zs. But I think we owe it to the new generation, and those are our children, I know very many young parents are listening to us, and they're going to listen to us over time. And I know very many of them are going to, they're bringing up their children. And I think they owe it to their own children to set a precedence or a platform where they allow their kids to express their feelings, Crying is not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Crying is not a sign of being weak. It's not. It's you letting out certain certain
Emotions,
situations
yeah.
and emotions. I'll tell you this, Abbas, men do cry, by the way. It's just that we do not cry in
public.
In public. I remember there is a time when issues had gotten so bad.
Yeah.
And then I was seeing someone. I am now single. But I remember we were in the living room watching a movie, and there were a lot of emotions within me. I stood up, entered the bedroom, locked the door, and then cried for 5 minutes and went and washed my face. I pretended as if I had been showering, and then came back and with a lighter face, That's what crying does, It lets you let out a lot of things, and who knows, you come back maybe happy, a little bit light at heart, and so I think young parents need to set precedences for their kids, allow them to express their emotions and feelings, let them cry if they need to, let them break down if they need to. And then to us, Abbas, I think we just need to set come up with safe spaces for men to, have these conversations and be able to let them lay out their emotions. And I'm talking about safe spaces in terms of, it could be a support group. It could be, these are things I do with Pearl Generation, by the way. Once in a while, we have a men's table, basically. And this is something I copied from my family. There was one evening when one of my uncles just came to us who were home, and he said, guys, I know we're all going through a lot of things as men, but we need to have a space where we talk about issues. Yeah. And he called all men, be it young or old. And in this space, he said, age is just a number. We are all equal as humans. And now we need to talk about issues affecting us as men in this family. And now people were able to, it was hard at first, but as we moved on and, went on with these tables, this talk and the men's table in our family, men started letting it out.
Yeah.
And it was interesting seeing one of my eldest brothers and my uncle dropping a tear, and I was looking at them and I'm like, okay, I thought I was really hard, but if the people I was looking up to are letting it out, then why not let it out, So I think those are also other things we need to do. Come up with either men support groups or clubs where men just sit and have a conversation over a drink, over a game, over a meal or a barbecue. Let them talk about issues affecting them. And, you need to let them know that it's okay to let go and cry, Yeah, so I do think parents setting precedences for their kids to, learn to understand that it's okay to break down and to let your emotions go before you at times. And then, setting safe spaces for young people or for people of our age to understand that it's also okay to talk about your issues. That will help us, help men try navigate the issues to do with their emotions.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing those experiences. Though I was hoping you're going to tell us why you cried when you're watching that movie.
I will tell you.
It's very important for us to know. Why were you crying? Was it a scene in a movie? Because I don't want people to feel like they're alone. I've heard of people who cry when they're watching a movie and they're like, before you know it, you start crying. Was it a scene in a movie or something?
But you need to know that I was brought up as a non-emotional person. And at this time, it wasn't a movie.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy parts where people are crying because they make me laugh. Mm-hmm. I enjoy seeing blood if someone is being killed.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoy such scenes in a movie because they make me happy, they make me laugh. I know they are not true, and so why would I cry?
Uh-huh.
But why I was crying is a very long story. So around 2019, some issues happened, towards, COVID delayed to, of course, enter the country and we were a bit free to move and so on. So before we even knew COVID in Uganda, it had been out there. But this is a period that was very tough. Abbas, March of 2019, I lost a lot of money at my NGO, about 900 million. And so I kept telling myself, things will be okay, you know. But I think there's a stage in every man's life when things just break down. So after losing that money, 3 months later, there is COVID all over the world. Now, my donors were giving me money. 5 of them, 3 of them died to COVID.
Oh,
now, it meant that I only have 2, but they were also struggling because of COVID.
COVID, yeah.
And now I have people to pay back at, office. I have rent to pay. Luckily enough at office, rent is paid for by my mentor. So I sat down one day in that house. I didn't have rent to clear my house. But the most disturbing thing is I didn't know what I was going to eat for supper.
And you're there with your girlfriend watching a movie.
Exactly. And when I looked at the Acker meter, it had 1 unit. And it was beeping. So I went and muted it. I didn't have credit on my phone. I didn't have data to reach out to anyone. So we were all seated and Madame expected to eat. But she didn't know what was happening. Now, remember this happened in March when I lost 900 million. Now, I have people at work demanding their salaries, but I also have some areas to pay elsewhere. Have someone demanding money, but I have rent, I have bills to pay, and then I have a life to live. Now, adjusting from the innocent that was to the new period in time that was happening, to not knowing how to ask for help and who to ask this help from was so hard a time. Now, this had been from March to the time we're at was September, and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I was wondering, I have set goals and targets to have reached by 30, and here I am about 27, 28, and I'm not sure I will be there. And I'm wondering, what then happens? How do I go from this stage to the next stage? Your little siblings, meanwhile, are calling for money. Your landlord is calling for their rent.
Yep.
And you're wondering, so what do I do? And so while watching this movie, I wasn't watching it. I was focused on the TV, but my emotions and
your mind was
somewhere else. So I looked at my madam, and in my mind I was wondering, I think I'm wasting their time. And now the fear of losing them also came in. The fear of wasting their time came in. But then how do I then tell them that we do not have supper? You get? So, and it was just something very difficult to handle. This was a life I was living from a bit, I think, late March towards September. And it was getting worse and worse.
Every other day.
There was no signs of getting better, And also, I had used all my savings to pay part of the salaries at office, to clear some of my areas, and now I had 0 balance left on my account. So I didn't know what to do next. And just like any other person, the thought of running away came in. A thought of going home came in. But then, a lot of mixed feelings and energies just don't know. Now, remember when I told you that I was brought up as a guy who is non-emotional, but also a guy who shoved and suppressed a lot of emotions within me. So I think this is a period when, how you have a teen that, let's say, has secrets or prayer requests like the Israelites, and then this teen falls and breaks, and everything shatters.
Yeah.
So everything you've been keeping comes to haunt you one by one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. I can only imagine, for someone who personally, I would tell you that no single person knows even 60% of who I am because of the systems that we have grown through, and telling ourselves we can't share most of the things we are going through with people. I can imagine what you're talking about, and just feel you took me back to a moment, because we all go through it as young boys growing up.
And you see, Abbas, at such a time, you have friends that look up to you, people that look up to you. Now, the first instinct as a human is fear of how they're going to view you.
Yeah.
But then also the fact that the friends I thought I had were starting to drop off. Why? Because it is human that when you don't have money, people leave.
You don't have something to give.
Yes, even your own family members leave. You have no value and you have nothing to give in return. Even those that are there to help get tired at one point, so so fears of how then do I approach people for help? But then how are they going to view me? And at times they're going to ask you what is happening, and you don't know how to explain your story.
So you're in a situation where you need the help, but you don't want to explain to anyone why you need the help.
Exactly. But I'll tell you one man later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there are about 4 guys in my life that I really hold so dear. Yeah. And I think these are friends that I've had. If you realize nowadays I'm a bit a reserved person, so into myself, I don't go out much as I used to. I quit most of my social circles, But 4 people, and I will mention their names. Tom Sabiti, I think for me, is a guy who held my hand one day and said, everything is going to be fine and I'm going to walk the journey with you until the end. I don't know where the end is, but we shall get there. And then one cousin of mine called Alan Musimenta Banjirana. He's been there from day one. My uncle, Innocent Senior.
Yeah.
From day one, he's been there, and these are guys who kept telling me, every man goes through this and it shall come to pass. And then, of course, a friend who became a sister she's called Juliana Kayaga. She's the first person who saw me cry as an adult. I walked to her office one day. She used to work in Bugolovi, and I walked to her office to talk to her about certain issues I was going through. And I remember walking in, and then I looked at her, and then I sat in a chair facing her, and I bent my head down on the table, cried for 30 minutes. It wasn't just crying. Do you know the crying of a baby, and you even start gasping for breath? And then because of shame, I stood up, walked out, blocked her.
Oh, wow.
I didn't talk to her for about a month or 2. She tried all means to get to me, but she couldn't because I blocked her and disappeared. She looked for me until one day she drove to Mbara. She drove. This is a friend, meanwhile, I just met. And then she drove to Mbara to my grandmother's house. And that's where she found me. And said, I looked for you. You're not going anywhere. You came to me for help. We have to find the help.
Wow. Wow. Okay. This is, I'm sure, information that is coming on for the first time. How did you get the courage to open up?
So, I've never gotten the courage, really. But I've never spoken about these things. Sometimes I speak about them in bits, or in a parable, or I substitute someone into them. And I think I've learned a thing about my life now. Most cases, in my way of joking, I'm actually talking about myself.
Yeah.
But most people don't know. I'm not saying that now that you've had this, you who is listening in, that you think every time I was talking about me. No.
Yeah.
But I think, for me, Abbas, I think I went through depression for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Something I never thought I would go through in my entire life. Something I'd never envisioned I would really go through. And the way I went through it was very shrewd. It's a period in time when you're screaming for help, but people don't see you. They don't notice that you actually need the help. You are with someone, you're staying with them, that's family or wife or friends. They are there, but they can't notice. And you can't just tell them I'm depressed, you know. But you're crying out for this help. And
Did you know that you were depressed then, or it's after going through the situation?
It was a stage of denial at first. I denied myself, the period that I was going through. And just like, the African chap, or African man, men don't break down.
Yeah.
Depression is an African thing. No, it's a white man's thing,
Yeah.
And I had seen this from where I did my undergrad law school in the UK. I'd seen a lot of people go through mental health, So I knew people go through mental health, And for me, it wasn't only financial, but now it had become a lot of things, a lot of regrets in life, bad choices I had made, situations I'm going through. Will I be able to achieve my goals at the end of the day by the age of 30? Then the public, pressure comes in, So there was a lot of things. And I was living in doubt on a daily. Until when I approached Juliana, that's the day I knew I was going through it, but I was denying myself that moment of healing. But that's the day I accepted that I was going through it. And just like any other man, might not be any other man, I decided to disappear. And for me, that's when I started getting the courage of understanding who I was and how to handle me. It's quite different how I dealt with depression because I tried seeking professional help. It didn't work. You know why? Because I've always been on the other side of listening. And I've not been on the side of talking. And that's the other problem I had, because I had a lot of things from other people that were affecting me at the end of the day, because I had kept a lot of it. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Abbas, even when I was going through depression, there were people I was helping, finding solution for, but these solutions were not working for me. And in that time of disappearing and switching off my phones, I lost a friend who I was helping. They killed themselves, and I carried that baggage and burden for a very long time.
Sorry about that.
And I always kept thinking it wasn't me, because when I called and no one was answering, I called the mom one day and I asked them how this person was doing, and they're like, "Oh, Bambi, Michelle, we lost Michelle. She killed herself, and she left a note for you. And in that note, she said she had wanted to badly talk to you that night, but you were unavailable and she didn't know what to do." And that's when I started understanding myself. So I disappear, and in that time, in the moment, I was just going to random places. I went to Gulu. I stayed in a place of 10K for 2 months. No one knew where I was. Every morning I would wake up, move out, go and talk to random people, border men, just random people, understand the situations and lives they are going through. After that, I went to Lira, I went to Arua. I was just jumping on random places, and I was using the most funny transport means. Jump onto a truck because it was cheaper anyway. I didn't have money enough to jump onto a bus or anything, until I think my last destination was where I come from, and that's Rwanda. And the journey to Rwanda was basically to know me, to know my ancestry, to know the people that I come from, to know the lineages that I've come from, and to understand why I am going through this situation, My grandmother is a very, very Christian person. And to seek that help, I usually call them the first principles of Christianity, and those were brought up under the first principles of Christianity, to seek God's guidance in terms of, why do you then choose me to carry this burden? Out of 54 million Ugandans, you choose me? No. So I needed to understand some of those things in life. Yeah, and that's when I started understanding that I had the courage to talk about my things, But you see also the difference at this time is that the people I was talking to were not asking me questions.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to explain to them. And I think that's the one thing my grandmother has mastered. That's the one thing Tom Sabiti has mastered. That's the one thing Alan Banjirana mastered. That's the one thing my uncle Innocent Senior mastered. None of them up until now did ask me what was happening. All they did was to be there for me, to listen when I needed them to listen.
Yeah.
That's the one thing Juliana did. That minute I bent down my head to cry, she didn't ask why I was crying. She just kept quiet, sat, looked at me, let me cry, and I walked out. Even when she came for me in Barra, we sat in that car back to Kampala and she didn't ask a question. We had some random other conversations, not about me. Things to do with movies, music, work. It was quite different, So
do you think that is a good or bad thing? Like just listening to you and not asking the questions?
It's a good thing in certain periods.
Yeah.
Because there are times when people just need to be listened to.
Yeah.
And not explained to or asked questions. Sometimes when you explain yourself, it then turns to be a competition of who has gone through the worst.
Yeah.
Then when you ask questions, it tends to be an interrogation, which now puts them on the spot. It looks like you're forcing them. And in the end, they're going to repel.
And also feels like you're being judged because they're being questioned.
So these guys just listened to me when they needed.
Yeah.
And they were there to help when I needed the help. I can't tell how many times I called Tom or Alan asking for money to jump onto somewhere, and they never asked where I was or why I needed the money, And the other thing is, I think one thing that Alan asked, he said, let me hope all this money you keep asking is not that you're going back to the old you at law school. And this is something I meant to say for the very first time to people who do not know me. But I was once an addict to cocaine at law school. And I think to him he thought he's using this money
to
get
buy drugs.
Yeah, to get drugs. But no, and that's the other thing. When I woke up to quit, I quit. So
easy? That easy? You just said I'm quitting or something?
I think I have come to understand that we're all different in the way we react and perceive things, The people who are going to struggle with it. For example, I woke up and quit drinking, and I am very happy going to my home every day, every Friday, every weekend, and being in my house, not thinking about alcohol. I won't say the urge does not come. It does come, but it's very easy for me to, suppress, So, but it was so easy for me. I just woke up and said, I am done. This is not me, and it can never be me. And that was it, Of course, I struggled to deal with the post effects of the withdrawal syndromes and so on. But then I did stop, and I think the first steps to healing are you need to accept that you want to heal yourself, but also accept the situation you are in. Accept the fact that it is not you, accept the fact that you're going through it, and accept the fact that you need the help. And when you understand those points in life, it's going to be easy for you to have that journey to healing and to dealing with any addiction.
You talked about something very important to me, listening to people's problems.
Yeah.
I am a listener. I listen to very many people, and I've been through this journey with people for a very long time. But then, just like you with Michelle, there was a time when I felt like, okay, I don't think I can take in any more of people's problems, much as I would really, really want to listen to them. I don't think I am in a good space to do it. How do you think we should be going about it when, you don't want to listen because you know that you, as a human being, are going to take on these people's pain? You're not trained to take on that pain, and in the end it ends up affecting you and becoming your problem. How did you go about it, and how should someone out there go about it?
I think it's a question of who do you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there is God who you would call Allah.
Yeah.
He's a very good listener. But then you see, he also works through people. While I was going through all my issues, there was a random person from Spain. And I think she had been following my work on LinkedIn for a very long time. And I think realized there was a time I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So she inboxed me and asked what was happening. And message, I responded to it a year later.
Wow.
And she was still waiting. And she is a counselor, but I didn't know she was. And so we started onto a journey, and she listened. And she told me, even when you listen to 100 stories, there must be a place where you let one to only carry 99. Because what makes it 100 is yours.
Yeah.
So you need to let out one to still have that space. You do not want to reach a super circulated solution point where you add sugar, boil, until a place where even when you boil and add sugar, it will still stay at the same stage, because that's the worst stage. So the first step for a listener is to find someone to listen to them. I know it's very hard. It's one of the hardest things. But the person to listen to you might not actually be the normal or the physical person or human.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a journal. You could journal these stories down, you know. I have journals I've written, and sometimes I reach home and burn one by one. I've been burning one by one. Reason is I do not want someone to learn on my secret. Yeah, so I keep burning. But then I also created a group on my WhatsApp for me, where
you chat to yourself.
I chat to myself. It looks awkward. It looks funny when I'm chatting to myself. Someone could actually think I'm going through situations, you know. But it helps reveal a lot of pressure off you. The other thing is find a place to channel most of your energies. And to me, I think I wanted a place where I could go and break things. You see how that car is?
Yeah.
Just wanted to get a hammer and hit every point that breaks. You know, so you might need to find a place where to channel that anger. To some, it's a sports game. Come and sweat on a tennis court. Go on a football pitch and sweat it out, or basketball, you know. Go do something that makes you sweat. Maybe run around. And you see, some of the things that I've picked, the worst things, effects I've picked out of this whole journey of depression, and I now have migraine problems that come, and when they were starting, they would leave me unconscious. Sometimes I would nosebleed for, over 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So those are some of the side effects that I've gotten out of shoving feelings, people's emotions
and all
my
that.
own emotions in. So I do feel certain times when the headaches come, it's the pressure of wanting to let out, but then I do not want to let out. So now the pressure goes on to, affect me that way. So I think you need to let it out, maybe by journaling, doing something really very physical. Get someone to listen to you. I know there are people that will want to listen to you and keep you as a secret to themselves.
Yeah.
By the way, and this is one of the, mistake in situations like those. Don't think their wives can, or their husbands or girlfriends now
should be their listener.
Yes, I want to tell you this. People were built differently. There are those who listen, then there are those who are shock absorbers.
Yeah.
Your wife might not be any of those, your husband, and that does not mean that they don't love you, but that's them. There are people who just can't take in emotions, and they won't help you. Then there are people you will tell and they will seemingly not be affected.
Yeah.
There are people you will tell and they will equally become emotional. As you, and cry even with you at that very moment. There are people who will just tell you shrewdly, stand up, walk, everything will be okay. And you'll be wondering, okay, I came to tell you my things, and this is what you're telling me.
It will be okay.
But you get, so stop mistaking your friends, your wives, girlfriends, husbands, and boyfriends for not being your listeners. Sometimes they are not built that way.
That's right. You must have observed a shift in the attitudes towards men's mental health. I know you dealing with the people and having that take a moment event each and every other time. Why do you think that is happening?
So Abbas, I think generations are changing, and we find ourselves a part of a generation that is very emotional, can easily break down, and have very weird characteristics. And I will tell you two of those that affects them dearly. They don't know how to relate. They don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
You know? And they expose everything as it comes. And that's how it goes out. So the generational gaps that exist have created easy platforms for us to help people. Now you find men easily talk about mental health all over social media.
Yeah.
You find men talk about their heartbreaks on social media. Something you and I
Would never.
I can never tell you about my heartbreaks.
Yeah.
You know,
I've been thinking about talking about my heartbreak situation, and I'm like, all these listeners here listening and judging me for being a fool in love. I'm like, no.
Exactly. I can never talk about my relationships on social media in public. There is a generation that easily talks about them. They actually find it so easy. They expose, and that's why we are having a generation that we're having times when we wake up almost to nudes every day on social media, pornography all over, you know. That is because, one, we've created platforms for people to easily talk about their issues, but also talk about these issues as people that are unknown. So I will create a social media account, talk about my issues, but you don't know who I am. You know, what they call faceless accounts. I might never post my picture or anything, but I will talk about my issues.
Their struggles and all that.
Exactly. Sometimes we talk about our issues in stories. Oh, there's someone I know that has been going through this. But you're talking about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the generational gaps are helping us bridge the gap in terms of communicating and talking about mental health. And that is a culture that is coming, and we might not be able to stop it. But I think we need to find ways in how to tame the way we use it and the way we communicate our issues within these platforms. There are certain periods when we do not need. You've seen people being pushed to almost, suicidal stages because they posted something. Yeah. People are abused and so on, I post my story and then someone just comes and maybe, laughs or makes some weird comment and so on, And it's to some people it looks so funny. To some actually looks serious. Some still don't take mental health as a very serious issue. So I think there are good platforms for us, but also we need to revise means on how to curb, on how to use them, and also communicate our information.
Oh. You are someone who has been in this advocacy, mental health advocacy for some time.
Yeah.
I've monitored your accounts on X. I still like calling it Twitter. And I've seen you talking about mental health. I've seen you being on different panels talking about mental health. What are some of the common mental health struggles that men in Uganda face?
Abbas, I'll start with the most common one, and that is a financial stress. Yeah. We live in times where the economy is so hard on everyone.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. And it pushes you to points of thinking you're not worth it.
Yeah.
And it has pushed very many young people to a dead point and then doing a lot of things that they're not meant to be doing. And most of the young people are working in jobs they do not love, but to earn a living, and that has left them in a state of being stressed. And the financial implication to that is quite a lot. And I think it contributes to the social life, how people, socialize, but also perceive a social life. You want to attain a certain level of social life, but you can't because you don't have the money. So at the end of the day, you're now pushed to get stressed about it. You're pushed to debt. You're pushed to making wrong financial decisions and so on. But also the other thing is, of course, the gender stereotype, that has contributed to certain things. You and I have seen things on X and other social media platforms where, men are called out for not providing, men are called out for failing at their own responsibilities, which is true. We live in a generation where some men are scared of their own responsibilities in a stupid way. But then, to a certain extent, certain men fail because they're not trying, but things have just refused. The economy has refused, And I'll tell you this. There is a family I know that where a man tried all things possible, but he went unemployed during COVID. He used all his savings to start up a business. It failed. He now was left in a period where he couldn't afford life himself, not even for his family. The wife decides to take every property the man had.
Yeah.
Goes to court, they give her the house, the kids, and so on.
Yeah.
How do you think this man is going to live? These are men we see jumping off buildings. This month only, we've seen 3 men jump off buildings.
Yeah.
And these are things that are driving them to these things, One goes to marry and they're asking you for 500 million. Why are you going to get this money? This is where you end up stealing, financial pressures. You go into a debt, the debt you carry into your marriage, and now it starts straining the whole marriage and you do not enjoy it,
Yeah.
And then, of course, other things are, of course, the social media itself. And social media has created communication barriers, and created also gaps within communication. Certain things have just, you've read stories about men, how men has failed at their own responsibility. Someone just feels it's okay to come and expose their family things on X, Someone, because maybe a relationship is failing, just come and post it on there, So these have pushed men to a very bad stage, But also alcoholism and drugs. These are things we take lightly, but yet affecting a lot of people out there, and driving a lot of people crazy. One, because it's a social life that could either financially affect you, and you're going to reach a time when you can't afford it. Then you go for the cheap alcohol, which is killer, Yeah, but Abbas, lastly, for me is something I want to blame partly on our parents, and that is the 2 points I mentioned about this generation. That is communication and relating. Now, I'm talking about relating not in terms of relationship only, but also in terms of relating with friends. How do I talk to my friends about my issues? How do I communicate these issues? So we are a generation that does not know how to communicate, and yet communication is two-way.
Yeah.
We keep blaming one another for the poor communication, but it's an initiative that takes 2 people to tango.
Yeah.
Same as a relationship. Now, we are talking about relationships in 2 ways. The relationship you might have with your boyfriend or girlfriend, vis-a-vis the relationship you have with your friends.
With your friends, yes.
And all these are also affected by communication, But then, also, the requirements needed to sustain these relationships are quite high. The time, you have a job, quite very many things. So those 2 things are driving us crazy, and we do not know how to handle them, only because while we are growing up, most of our parents were not present.
Yeah.
So we didn't have people to communicate to. Most of them would leave home at 6, come back at 10 when we were already asleep because tomorrow is school. some people have never gotten a chance to sit with their dads or moms out for a coffee and just talk about
Life.
issues. I don't know if you've sat down with your dad and talked about manly issues.
No.
How you're dealing with your relationships.
No, I haven't.
You see now, how then are you going to know how to handle a relationship if your dad has not told you how he has been able to handle relationship with your mom if it is still there? You know?
Yeah.
So how did he handle breakups? Because we need to find somewhere to learn from, an inspiration. So for as long as our parents and you young parents keep avoiding your responsibilities, you're bringing up broken generations. And this is how we are ending up with kids who are struggling to have relationships.
Wow.
But lastly is the unemployment and the employment structure. You've seen me talk about advocating for better employment workspaces and so on. Not because they are toxic in terms of or maybe people are being violated in terms of sexual or harassed and so on. No, but because there's a lot of pressure in these workspaces, and there are no safe spaces for young people to express their feelings. There's a lot of ageism, which is segregation based on age. Young people, you can't communicate anything sensible in a meeting that has, old people. They will take you as juniors and that's it. With your knowledge and wisdom, you can't say a thing, you know. And then the low payments, the exploitation that is happening, all these young people have a lot of bills to pay. Remember the jokes we just cracked before the podcast of how the economy is pushing you. You have bills to pay home, And what's funny is these things all get done at the same time. You reach the house, there's no tissue, there's no bathing soap, there is no toothpaste, no sugar, no salt. Electricity is done, the water bill is demanding, then the rent comes at once, And yet at work they are delaying to pay you, but they are putting you on a lot of pressure to deliver. So you bosses, the new bosses and the young bosses out there, please help the young people. There are some spaces that are workspaces that we are working with to create safe spaces for young people to be able to let out their issues. You don't need to have a counselor in there. It can just be an open room with an airbag or some few board games, just a carpet. You don't need chairs. Just a place where they can go maybe after work for 30 minutes, sit, relax and reflect about the day, talk to one another, So those are some of the things that we need in our society.
That's amazing. I am hoping that we can embrace this culture where we actually can openly seek this kind of help. Which actually brings me to my next question. Professional help for mental health in Uganda. What's your experience with men actually seeking professional mental health? Yourself, have you ever tried to seek for professional mental health help?
Yes, I have. But it didn't work out for me. But it doesn't mean it won't work out for you who is going through situations. Like I said, we are different people and we need to appreciate that, What may work for you might not work for me. Like I said, I was helping people, finding solutions for them while these solutions were not working for me, So I have, but it didn't work for me. But there is a lot of stereotype as concerning professional mental health and seeking for it. When people see you go in, they think you're mad. I want you one day to tell your friends you're going to Butabika for help. And I want you to record and package their reaction. And you will see that stereotype that comes to it, that stigma that comes with it, of Butabika is for only mad people, And so those are some of the things, and it's quite very expensive, by the way. I don't know why, but we need to find ways of making it a little bit cheaper. I know most of us are doing it. For example, I'm doing it on pro bono, but the times when it becomes really very expensive for me to do it and I need to be paid for the service, but then it's also hard, People are not seeking for it because it's very expensive. I don't know what goes in the minds of the people that offer it and the price. And I can't really speak on their behalf, but it's quite very expensive, and there needs to be a solution to that price, either by the government or the service providers. Yeah.
I've seen the rates for most of the therapists in town. You just seeing them for an hour could cost you, I don't want to say.
A farm.
I don't want to say. However, now, what are some of the organizations you can recommend that men can actually look out and seek help from?
The government itself is the first place, and I'm talking about Butabika. It's not only for the mad people. Anyone that needs help could walk in, you know. We do have Mindless, is it, forgetting the name?
Boundless?
Yeah, Boundless Mind. Yeah, Boundless Minds. A very nice space for people to seek out help. Yeah, and then we do have safe spaces just here in Chambogo. Yeah, Chambogo. A very nice space for young people to go and seek help. And then you could come to Pearl Generation, really, and seek out that help.
Did you talk about CC Companions?
Yes, of course. CC Companions. Really quite interesting people that could offer help to anyone that needs it. So there are quite very many nowadays all over social media. I know people fear to be, ripped off their money and not being able to get the help. Yes, there's also the military center in Bombo. It's not only for the soldiers. Anyone can go there and seek that help. There's one, I've forgotten the name. It is on Zilowe Gayaza Road. They have a nice center in there that does help with addictions and mental health issues. I've forgotten the name, unfortunately, but it's just a nice center for people to go and seek help. And nowadays, services, you could get services from as far as UK, all over Europe and US. So Zoom calls, my professional helper is called Candy Maria. She's all over LinkedIn. You could find her there, So you just need to find places you can, and it's very okay for you to seek for that help, because life first, life is very precious. There is no substitute for life. There is no spare part for anything on your body. They can give you a plastic thing, but your brain has no substitute. Has no plastic surgery. They can't do anything. The moment it tunes off, you're gone. So look out for the government, the Minister of Health, on a monthly basis posts the toll-free numbers that you could call for mental health. But if all fails, Butabika is the best place. And Bombo.
All right. Thank you so much. When we had just started, you talked about your experience.
Yes.
And how you got really down to the barrel. How did you come out of it?
The question is, have you come out of it?
Oh, yes. Have you come out of it? And if yes, how? If not, how are you going about it?
So I won't say I'm 100% there. It's always a journey. And that's what I want to tell someone out there. When you find yourself in a situation like that, depression, you won't heal in a day.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and you can relapse anytime, And when you relapse, it doesn't mean that you've, wasted time with all the steps you took. It's more or less like a baby trying to walk and stand. They'll keep standing but falling, but that does not mean that they'll never walk.
Yeah.
There's a point.
Always be progression.
Yes, there's progression. For every time they stand and fall, there's progression, and they get to become firmer. So I haven't, not yet there 100%.
Yeah.
I am on a journey. There are days that are really very bad, and worst thing is that I stay alone. So I talk to my utensils, my walls in the house, talk to my chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, I need to hang a punching bag in my house. I guess, yeah. But how did I get out of it? First stage was accepting. that I'm in it, then accepting that I needed help, accepting that there was a journey that I now need to start walking, and accepting that there were people out there that wanted to help, but they also didn't know how to help unless if I let them
know what you're going through.
Yeah, know what I'm going through, but also learning how to communicate about it to people. You don't need to tell them everything. You just tell them what they need to know so that you help, Some of them don't need to listen to all your stories.
Yeah.
They just need to help you, and they need to know how they should offer that help. And then you need to build gatekeepers around yourself. Not every human around you is one built to help you. Some are just people passing by. Some are people meant to be in your life but not to help you deal with depression. Some are people meant to be in your life to hold your hand and take you to the people that are going to help you. And for me, those are the 4 people I talked about: Tom Sabiti, Alan Banjirana, Juliana Kayaga, and Innocent Senior. But above all those 4, there was my grandmother. Funny thing is, none of them asked. When I went to my grandmother, she never asked what was happening. She just knew I wasn't okay. And she just did things to get me to a place of being okay. Where she was going, she would take me. Going to the farm, we go together. And that was distracting me over time and trying to, if my brain was dead, it was now healing itself vis-a-vis me sitting in the room and, pondering on what was going wrong. And as I let my brain die the more I got out, the more my brain healed itself. So you need the gatekeepers to help you go walk the journey with you. It's a journey,
Yeah.
These people still call in, check in, and, we work about things, and keep asking me, so what's the progress? There's another friend I've not really talked about, but I think he was the first person to notice, and he's called Herod Turije. Herod is a partner of mine at, he's on the board of directors of Pearl Generation. Started out as young as we were both lawyers, but he was the first person to notice. And one day, I think when all this was happening, he just called me and I refused to come out. And then what he did is that he just called a few friends. They came home and broke in and carried me out of that house by force. Put me in his car, and they drove me to Jinja. Forcefully.
Oh.
He just told me, I know you're not fine. I don't want to listen to what you're going through, but we are going to Jinja, and I hope you talk about the experience in years to come. And I appreciate what he did that time. And he has walked that journey with me up until now. So you need those gatekeepers. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. This journey of coming through depression and having mental health issues is not an easy one, and it is actually very hard for most of us to even identify.
Exactly.
You're going through something, but you do not acknowledge or think it is big enough for you to actually seek help. It's a financial stress. You're like, I know it's just money. I'll get money. I'll go through it. Or it's a breakup you had and you're like, I'll go through this.
Yeah.
When do you realize that, you know what, this is an issue I should actually be able to talk, I should talk about with someone?
There will always be signs of breakdown.
Yeah.
You get agitated easily by certain issues, You become a loner. Things that you are doing for fun tend no longer make sense.
Yeah.
People you found interesting no longer
are not interesting anymore.
Exactly. You feel sick. You are in a place where you're lost, Your visions, your goals you've set don't make sense anymore, The worst thing about depression, though, is that you're always tired. You're always tired. you ponder about everything, you keep pushing it away. I'll do it tomorrow. But it's the laziness speaking, and that laziness is because your brain is in a shutting mode. It's shutting down, and you basically can't figure out how to do it yourself. So you find yourself in stages. You do things you've never done. There are people who eat a lot. There are people who just go hungry. Yeah, people go hungry. You basically wasted. And you see, also, the biggest sign is that your house is always dirty. Everything is wherever it wants to be, And this is not even... I'm a sucker for cleanness and neatness. But those are days when I never cared. I never cared about anything. I remember one day, my girlfriend walking to my house and was like, why don't you comb? Okay, why don't you cut off the hair? And then, why are you wearing a baggy t-shirt? As in, there's a tailor, they can reduce it. And I was looking at her and I'm like, you realize you're talking about my life, not your life? In my mind, Because I was thinking, at that point, it is normal to have shaggy hair. It is normal. The t-shirt I'm wearing is very normal, And I had lost a lot of weight, so it was visible. I don't know if there's a time, I think when it was so visible and I started fearing coming to public, was a time, then I was still in Rotary. And there was a fellowship at a dining room. Was it dining room, dining hall?
Dining room.
Yes.
One day.
So one day I come out and everyone is looking at me, and the cheekbones, the chest bones, and then everyone is looking at me and they're wondering, what's happening? So a few people come and start asking me, and then it starts disturbing me. And you know what happened? I just walked out and grabbed a judge and went back home. And that even killed me the more. And I never got out of the house for the next 2 months. Yeah. So there will be signs.
Wow. Now I think this goes out to everyone out there who normally wants to sound intelligent, complimenting on people's weights. Hey, you've put on weight, or you've chopped weight,
You basically don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, it's very...
They may be gaining weight because they're eating a lot because of the
or even
stress.
going through some... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, thank you so much for sharing. What are your parting shots, your way forward for all the men?
One... Our traditional notions of masculinity in Uganda really possess a significant challenge to mental health in this country, and they affect most of our emotions as, men.
Yeah.
But that said, we need to find a pathway as men ourselves to help elevate a platform for the generations to come. And I say that because the generations that are coming are more vulnerable to situations that, we've not seen or heard, and they are more weaker than we are because we've built them that way. And, we need to set precedences where we allow them to easily express their emotions and let them out, And we need to learn how to help walk the journey with them. You shouldn't make it about you. You shouldn't make it about who has gone through the worst. You shouldn't make it a situation of, but me, I studied in school without shoes. It doesn't work that way because that was your generation. Yeah. Now is this is different. Yeah. And they're going through a different thing. But, we just need to appreciate the differences and the gaps within those generations to best help and best find that help for, the generations that are coming. They might be stupid and naive, but that's because of this environments you've created for them. So we need to help them grow out of that naivety.
Thank you so much once again, Innocent. It's been an amazing experience listening to this story firsthand. And I am sure that very many people are going to learn from this. For me, my biggest pickups always don't feel the burden alone. Share, and with the people who you want to share this with, seek professional help, and most importantly, do not be there with your unsolicited compliments of how people have gained or lost weight.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, listeners. Hoping that you have enjoyed this episode of the In My Voice podcast. Until next time, let's stay very, very intentional in helping people who are going through these mental health challenges.